Hey, what's up, you guys? It is Chris, arch-usa.com. As always, like, share, and subscribe. And a little bit more, always, we get into these more serious topics. I'm going to try and get back to doing these scheduled every Friday, but as big information releases, I'll try to get that information out to you and explain it in the best way I possibly can. So let's get to it. I'm doing this post, if you look right here to the side, what sneaker analysts, reporters, and sneaker culture continues to overlook with Nike account cancellations. It's in response to the original source article written by Nathaniel Meyerson of CNN Business. All right. Now, full disclosure, I spoke with Nathaniel prior to his article being written and actually kind of segued him into some people he could speak with. I know for a fact that there are going to be more articles coming, but that original article missed some critical information that was available that they could have utilized, but they probably are saving it for something later. Now, let's get to this discussion. I'm going to be clicking back and forth a lot. In the description, you'll be able to see the links that I show you over here to the side, and you see my mouse moving around right there in the picture. So let's get to it. Nathaniel Meyerson of CNN Business delivered a post that reverberated throughout the media. It landed in the lap of and was retweeted by prominent reporters from CNN, from Forbes, and different places. It was also retweeted and shared by legends in sneaker culture and sneaker media as well. Now, many of those responses revolved around the idea that Nike's consumer direct acceleration could potentially hurt the swoosh long term because Nike doesn't have enough of their own locations to serve the consumer. So people are thinking that Nike won't be able to get the product to that consumer, and it's wrong. In the post, Meyerson spoke with account holders who helped Nike to grow when the brand was when it was in its infancy, right? So when Nike was just starting, these mom and pop stores gave Nike the opportunity to sell their product. Now these mom and pop stores are like, hey, we're being alienated and we're left out to dry when we gave Nike their chance. Here's the problem with that logic. It assumes that the market never shifted or that it hasn't grown and that the market in the sneaker industry and retail period is oversaturated and overrun with far too many retailers. It sucks that a mom and pop loses their account, but to assume that things haven't changed and that you should be given something based on your past versus what you look like now in comparison to new retailers, it's difficult for me to say it because I admire loyalty and I stand by loyalty. But you can't build your business thinking that you're going to keep something without changing and improving your presentation. So let's look back and we'll recognize as Nike built their business, they used what was called futures. The brand was built on the number of orders they had with wholesale accounts, right? Now, if you remember when Yeezy thought it jumped over the Jumpman, if you remember that, then you remember a moment that a lot of people overlooked and didn't discuss. That year that Yeezy said it jumped the Jumpman, Nike no longer reported futures. And they really began to push their DTC strategy, which would become the consumer direct offense, which is now the consumer direct acceleration. Come on, sneaker culture, y'all stay with me. Yeezy only jumped the Jumpman because the sales reports didn't include Nike direct sales. When retailers failed to deliver a dynamic in-store experience, I went to Jimmy Jazz 3 years ago, and that store up there in Harlem blew me away. That's a chain that you haven't seen reported in any of these closures, right? Nike's decided to move away from people who aren't doing, any changes to their business. And I'm sure someone is saying, well, Foot Locker doesn't look any different. Foot Locker has over 3,000 doors to deliver Nike product. But get this, many of those doors with Foot Locker overlap with mom and pop stores and other chains. Now, I'm going to go down here and I'm going to show you some stores that closed, one in particular, Olympia Sports. And I'm coming back up to this section and I'm going to show you, here is Olympia Sports. They are one of the people that are losing in this new round of stores losing Nike. Main Mall, right? And look inside of the main mall, Finish Line, Foot Locker. What point does Nike have in maintaining a relationship with Olympia Sports when they have a Finish Line and Foot Locker right there in that same area? It sucks for Olympia. They may not even carry the same type of product, but they can't compete with those two chains. Understand what I'm saying? But this is the catch. Even with the number of doors that Foot Locker has, Foot Locker is still building power centers and new concept stores. Foot Locker won't lose Nike, but that doesn't mean that they're safe, because we know recently that Nike is going to begin fulfilling orders for Foot Locker. And I think that's a problem long term, which is a completely different discussion. Also, Foot Locker has had to close a ton of stores while figuring out where to open new locations. Working with Nike is a continual adjustment. Finish Line had to close a ton of stores. And if you remember back in 2017, the only thing that saved Finish Line from bankruptcy was taking a poison pill. I'll put that article down in the description because I know some of you are like, what is he talking about? And you're going to have to go and read about that. Okay? So they got picked up by JD Sports and that saved the company. Now, let's get back to the people who think Nike is making a big mistake. When the discussion begins around Nike, it's extremely important to note that most people are missing information. Now, in the article below where I talked about Model, and I'm going to click that just so you guys can see it, and I'm going to come back to it, but I'll put that in the description as well. I gave you a list from Sam Poser, and he gave you all of these stores that were losing Nike. Those are not small stores. Those are not mom and pops. Those are big chains. And just this week, Sam Poser of Williams Trading announced another round of stores that are losing Nike within the next year. DSW, Urban Outfitters, Shoe Show, Dunham's, Olympia Sports, which I just talked about, Big Five. What I'm getting at here, and Macy's, right? So Nike will no longer sell apparel to Macy's and their Finish Line that's inside of it, right? This stuff is huge, man. And what I'm getting at here, for those people who see Nike removing mom and pop shops as wrong or potentially problematic, the data simply doesn't show that is the case. To wrap this up, let's take a look at more recent data than what I showed above, right? On this chart. The number of stores for Nike and the growth. The link is in the description. You'll be able to go to it. But notice the growth here. Now you have the number of stores in the United States. Nike is in blue. So think about this. Nike continues to open doors which will allow a stronger relationship with the consumer. As Nike develops these bonds, they generate more revenue. That's up here, where I show you guys how much money they're making over the years as they go DTC. Nike doesn't discriminate on who they're removing accounts from. It's an efficient machine, Nike is, with a mission to reach 50 billion. And although COVID disrupted that business, it's allowed for the surgeons inside of Nike to cut away tumors, both benign and malignant. The only company capable of stopping Nike is Nike. I'll leave you guys with that. I'm looking chunky. Don't care. I'll see you guys on the next one. Going to start a subscription service soon, and we'll see what happens with that. Peace, y'all. Goody Mob, use that dome between them two shoulders.